Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Not Minding My Own Business. I'm Russell Farbiars, your host, and I'm here with Kryn McClain. Welcome, Kryn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Kryn, why don't we get started? Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your business?
Sure. I'm the president at Paragon Behavioral Health Services. We are a small women-owned behavioral health company here in Berks County, where we are situated, and we also have additional locations in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, and one in Western New York. So we do have the ability to serve all of New York and Pennsylvania for mental health services via telemedicine or in one of our locations. And then we also have an autism program under the IBHS Pennsylvania regulations for Berks County and Lancaster County as well.
So you said small, but don't you have 17 providers that work for you?
Yeah, so we're still technically a small business. We're under 100 employees, but just by a smidge. We do have 76 employees right now. We started in December of 2017, and we've rapidly grown from that time to where we are today.
Wow. So the end of 2017 to now, and you've grown to 76 employees and multi-state locations. So how did you do it?
Yeah, I get that a lot. And
Sure you do.
sometimes it feels like a blur, because when we started this business, I was finishing up my doctorate. I was still nursing my baby at the time. And it's truly like a woman's tale of just being like, you know what, we're just going to do this anyway. So I think we got here because we have an incredible team of people that work with us and who saw our vision and really got on board with that. And we really just wanted to create a different kind of place to work where people are treated better. And I think that really resonates in a lot of people. We're an incredibly diverse crew. A lot of people love the fact that we're women owned, and feel that we understand, women's issues, because we are them. We live them, we experience them. So I think that is very attractive to people. But to objectively define, how we got to where we are, I really just have to attribute it to the amazing leaders we have at our company, who grow and inspire and replicate that to grow new leaders to develop the business.
So you talk about developing the business, and can you talk a little bit about what you do to not work in the business, but work on the business to help it grow?
Yeah, that's great. That's something I definitely have had to learn. I'm a therapist by trade and an entrepreneur by sheer will. So what we did this past fall, we applied for an accelerator program in Western New York, and we were accepted. So that really taught me how to get in that mindset. And I think that's huge, is like getting in the mindset of, what does it mean to work on my business and not in my business? So I've taken a step back. I no longer see patients. So my panel is closed. I've discharged or transferred everybody. And now my sole purpose is to work on our vision. Where are we going this year? Where are we going in 5 years? How about 10 years? What does that look like for us? What problems are there in the behavioral health world? So those are some things that I really try to take a look at, developing systems for our people. And then I make sure, we have the people in place to make sure the systems are actually working that we've developed, making adjustments here and there. So it's really creating a structure for the business to function smoothly, and then to make adjustments when things are not working as smoothly.
It's definitely hard. I can tell you from personal experience, sort of trying to, I sit in that role as well as being a lawyer, and I can tell, I know that finding that space and that mindset is challenging. So it's great that you found it. Are there any books that you've read that have informed that, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually sitting right next to my favorite book, which is Traction. Um, it's like my Bible. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, given your response, but
it's my Bible too.
it's seriously the Bible for developing systems and, getting in that right mindset. And It's amazing. I love it. And then there's Get a Grip too, that kind of goes along with that. That's downstairs in my kitchen that I read.
Yep.
So there's definitely that for if we're talking about building the system. But if we're expanding into culture, I really love reading Simon Sinek's books. Really understanding your why and your purpose. And I also read Hubert Jolly. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but his book, the heart of business, and he was the CEO who turned Best Buy around. So Best Buy did not go the way of Radio Shack and Circuit City,
Right.
because he found a way to connect people's purpose with their own why to what
Mm-hmm.
Best Buy was doing, and really found a way to pivot that business. So I found that, extremely useful when we were developing our company culture.
Absolutely. When you were describing what you were doing, it sounded like traction, but I don't want to be presumptuous, but
Yeah.
traction is something that we implement in our business as well. Um, Not as successfully as you, I don't think, but we definitely, we're not quite big enough for traction. You certainly are, but
Mhm.
it is really like the Bible, and Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've seen his TED talk, that he did, but he's very inspiring on finding your why. So
Yes.
so
Mhm.
that's a good transition to what is your why? Why does your business exist?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something, even like listening to Simon Sinek's podcast really helped me as I'm going on these car rides, from here to Western New York often, it's a 5 hour car ride. So I have lots of time to think. And I could talk about my personal why is my why is developed from a deep sense of that I want to help people, and how that's come to be over the years has certainly changed, but that, deep sense of wanting to help others has never changed. But another part of who I am and my why is like, I love to create. I love being creative and not being held down by red tape, and just having the freedom and the flexibility to think and innovate new ideas. So having that ability has led me to, really work with my team and say, hey, what are the problems in behavioral health care? And really it comes down to shortage of providers, whether they're leaving the field, not entering the field. It takes forever to get licensed. And by forever, I mean, a good 5 years once
Mhm.
you're done with grad school and develop enough client case hours, just to come on the other side to be paid essentially, $20, $21 an hour with a master's degree and a license. So those are some things that we're constantly thinking about. And my why is very much driven to not only help people, but to help the caregivers. Those are the clinicians, our providers, our administrative staff, to reach their full potential. And you can't do that if you're not paying people what they're worth.
That's a very good point, and I particularly in the inflationary economy that we're in right now,
Mhm.
I think it's a very sensitive issue because $21 today is worth 9.1% less than it was worth a year ago. So
Mhm.
so how have you combated that in your business?
Yeah, that's a great point too. So we've been watching that as well. So what we do is we take the county's livable standard wages, and we take a look at what it looks like for a single family home, a family with children, double income, things like that. So we've actually created salary tables that are well above the living wages based on the counties that we live in.
Wow, that's really wonderful,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that you've engendered a lot of loyalty from your employees by really looking at what's going to work for them and not making it just about the business and the profit margin.
Correct. Yeah, because if we put our people first, then I mean the profits are coming in. I mean it's just working. So I think that goes back to your original question. Well, how did you do that? Like, well, we make sure we're taking care of people, and we do that by looking at the statistics and not just having one rate fits all. Because making $21 an hour and only in New York is certainly different than Lancaster County. The cost of living is much higher down here.
Mhm.
So I mean, you can buy a wonderful home in Olean for $100,000. You can't down here. So really taking a look at that and how we can um, make sure that our expenses are really neat and clean so that we can have those salary tables.
Yeah, that's really intriguing, and I'm sure that you have that your business has obviously been growing. Do, are you seeing a lot of need for your services?
Yes. Yeah. In short, yes. Just
Yeah.
the other day, we had like 30 new applicants or requests for therapy service, coming in over a span of a couple days, which is just unheard of. That for us, at least, that's just rapid growth. And we're constantly trying to hire new therapists to join us so that we can meet that demand.
So, and have you seen that increase since the beginning of the pandemic? How is that? How has the pandemic affected what you're seeing in terms of new people seeking services?
Yeah. So, I mean, the pandemic is, yeah, there's certainly, there's always been a need for services. I do think it's accelerated that need, or I think it's really just shined a light on something that's always been there. There have always been mental health issues, but now people are actually willing to talk about it. I think there's been a lot more deep empathy from people who maybe not have experienced mental health before, and that's really opened the door to normalize it. You go to your doctor every year for an annual checkup. Why wouldn't you go for a mental health checkup every year just to make
Hmm.
sure everything's okay, and that nothing is creeping up on you? We all go through life changes. We all go through ups and downs. If you're not, you must be living in a cave because life hits you one way or another. And, a therapist is really just there to help you to kind of neutrally navigate some of those things that might be challenging. And there's some, of course, deeper issues like trauma and grief and depression and anxiety. Certainly much more anxiety in the teenage population. They had a huge disruption in their school life during a developmental stage that is very important to have social interaction. So we've certainly seen an increase there. And we were really able to pivot and meet that demand because we were already using telehealth before the pandemic as a way to improve access to care. So it was very easy just to say, hey, keep seeing us. We'll do it, much like we're doing now, whether we're using, we use a HIPAA compliant portal. We don't use Zoom, but we've just been able to kind of keep up and meet with that.
That's great. And have you continued to see a demand for telehealth, or is it everything sort of reverting back to the face to face?
I would say it's a good mix. A lot of clients prefer it because they can just jump in their car on a lunch break and not have to drive anywhere.
Right.
Clinicians prefer it. We have a lot of new moms who would prefer not to see 30 different people in the office each week, having a close interaction for an hour. So whether you're wearing a mask, it's kind of moot at that point when you have such close contact with people. So a lot of our clinicians have chose to stay virtual and limit their office exposure.
And it sounds like your clientele hasn't, there's not been any pushback on that, with continuing the virtual appointments.
No, and I mean, our therapists have really done their best to make accommodations for the people who do really want to be in person. They'll open up a day where maybe they're having one day in the office as opposed to 5 different days in the office.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And then you said you have you have a location here in Berks County. How many therapists do you have in Berks County?
Sure. We have, let me think, Berks County. We have 2 therapists in Berks County right now that I have stepped down from
Okay.
that role. Mhm.
And what sort of what sort of counseling do they offer? Is it anything and everything, or are there certain specialties that they focus in?
Yeah, sure. So we do have a bilingual therapist here in Berks County, Maria. She's fantastic. So she really works with the Hispanic population. Dr. Cox is our psychologist here in Berks County. She provides, oh my goodness, just about everything she can do. She's been doing autism testing for us and diagnosing. There's probably about 6 months to a year wait list for the other provider in Berks County. I think there's only 2 people that I know of that are providing this service, and we're one of those people. She also does a lot in terms of like postpartum grief and depression. So new moms who've experienced loss during a pregnancy. She really specializes in those couple of areas. And then of course we have our autism program in Berks County where we have the one of the larger programs here as well.
Can you tell me a little bit about that autism program?
Sure, sure. So we follow the IBHS regulations under Pennsylvania laws. And what that is a community based service. So we go where we're needed most. So they would come in and they would get a written order, much like a prescription to go fill a medication, you get a prescription to go fill therapy hours. So depending on what the needs are and where the needs are, we go into homes, schools, communities, wherever the skills need to be helped or assisted. And that's where we target our work.
Okay. And is it just traditional counseling, or is it something a little bit different?
It's a little different. So they're not therapists. We call them behavior analysts or behavior consultants, and they have a different degree. So they're board certified behavior analysts, BCBAs, and they're extremely knowledgeable in their field. They're just beyond intelligent. I mean, they run circles around me. I've learned so much about that from them. So they're a completely different field from our therapists. So they're two completely separate programs that we're running.
Okay. That's wonderful. And you said that you're one of two providers in the area for that?
For the autism testing. So testing and like actually diagnosing a kiddo with autism.
What does that testing look like? I've always just been curious of what that actually looks like.
Yeah, so it's called the ADOS-2, ADOS, and that is really the gold standard right now for testing and diagnosing for autism spectrum disorder. It's done over the course of 3 different sessions. So the parent or guardian comes in with the child. Dr. Cox would do a questionnaire with them. She completes that. And then Dr. Cox the next session is the kiddo comes in and she administers, or adult, I should say, because we also do children and adults for this service. She administers the test, and that's just about an hour. And then she interprets the results, and that takes about 8 to 10 hours to gather all of this data and compile it into a report. And then we invite the family and the client back in for the results, and she goes over the results of the test with them.
Okay. And what sort of things are you looking for, or is she looking for to identify autism?
Sure. So, I mean, there's many different categories. It's not just, if there's a social deficit that they have autism. It's really a combination of skill deficits or developmental deficits that would be interpreted once she scores everything to work out to provide the diagnosis of autism. So it's kind of, I don't want to say an algorithm. I don't think it's that as complicated as that, but there's many factors to consider. So developmental milestones, speech and occupational delays, or social deficits, things of that nature.
Okay. So what's next on the horizon for Paragon? What are your goals for the next year, 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So this year we were really focused on kind of establishing some credibility. We knew we were doing a great job, but we really wanted to have some kind of seals of approval. So we did apply for the Great Places to Work this year, and we were able to achieve that. So that's really a survey that went out to the entire company, where 84% of people said that this was a great place to work, compared to other US companies that say about 59% people typically say that this is a great place to work. So we're really, really proud of that achievement. And then we were just accredited by the BHCOE, who provides that accreditation to autism companies. And we were able to achieve a 2-year accreditation through that entity by meeting the standards that they set, which were incredibly rigorous. It took about 5 months to go through that whole process. So we were really, kind of validated by, showing, hey, this is what we're doing. Yes, please talk to our clients and their families and our people. And we were able to achieve that. So that was my big goal this year, to kind of nail down, some validation on those accreditation statuses, and to keep developing the systems and things of that nature. Over the next 5 years, we're working to develop this virtual reality software for kids with autism. So we've really put some time and energy and money into an initial launch for this. So we've developed 3 different scenarios for kids to come into our office. We're running group therapy with this. They put on an Oculus headset, and we start with just, hey, let's talk about chopping vegetables and assembling a salad together. And then we're learning how to make mac and cheese. We're learning how to use a stove safely. Then we're pivoting to the oven safety. So our goal is to hit a lot of people with this on a national level by scaling our library so that we can sell this to other autism providers or families to use in home, so that we can kind of, like I talked about earlier, start to contribute to the problem of the shortage of providers. While we're not replacing a provider, but we're also helping teens who are moving into adulthood acquire these skills that would be a little bit more difficult to teach in the real world, right? We have real world consequences if we mess up chopping vegetables or, oven safety and stove safety and things like that. So once we get a certain level of confidence that these skills can be transferred, then we're making some progress here to hopefully help teens transition successfully into adulthood, not needing as many services.
That's a really neat concept, especially, we talked before we started recording about how there's a much more need than there are providers available right now. And do you see that changing at all in the next 5-10 years?
I don't. I think the problem is going to get worse. Unfortunately, there's not as many people entering the field. I think people are looking at and saying, wow, why would I spend 80 grand to 100 grand on a master's degree when I'm going to come out and likely only get paid $21, $22, $23 an hour? Whereas a MBA, you're making six figures easy, coming out of your MBA program. So I don't, unless the system changes, the industry changes, unless the government says enough of this, we're actually going to fund these mental health companies the way they should be funded. I don't see that changing.
Yeah. And so then it's great to have something to try to fill some of that gap. And I guess that's what you're looking at with this virtual reality program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're trying to think outside the box. We're like, well, hey, can we create more therapists? Can we, that's really a grasping at straws kind of method. Everybody's hiring, everybody's trying to get, new providers in. And, but we're like, well, let's pivot. Let's see if we can bring the therapy to somebody, and in a way that's going to be safe, but really immersive and in a controlled environment, but still get those skills out there. So that hopefully, those were just 3 scenarios I talked about. We've got, we did one brainstorming session for an hour and we came up with 55 more ideas. And I get more every day. I'm walking around the grocery store and thinking about how overwhelming it can be in the grocery store if you don't know how to grocery shop. It was just something I take for granted, where I'm like, yep, I got this. I know exactly how much it's going to cost each week. And really helping someone figure out, I was looking for, tea the other day and I couldn't find it because it wasn't on a sign, but I knew, okay, it's probably by the coffee. So I found the coffee. And I'm like, wow, that would have been super frustrating if I didn't have that skill to put that together. I'm constantly thinking about these things, and we've got a great team who can deliver on these ideas, not only with software content, but developing it in a way that's going to be sensitive to the autistic community and also really, really effective.
Yeah, I would never have thought about that, as being a challenge, but that makes complete sense that would be a challenge for some people. So let's shift gears for a moment and just talk a little bit about you. Are you originally from the Berks County area?
No, I'm actually originally from Western New York. I'm from Olean, New York. And then I transplanted to Berks County in 2013.
Okay. Well, what brought you to our lovely county?
Yeah. So my wife had matched residency at Tower Health, Reading Hospital at the time. So we moved down here together to complete her OBGYN residency.
Oh, very, very, very nice. I'm also a transplant, so I understand. I'm from Long Island, New York. So
okay.
Well, same state, but very, very different.
Very different indeed.
Yes. So what have you enjoyed most about Berks County since you've gotten here?
Oh my goodness. We love it here. We love the variety of, just activities to do. Like you said, of Western New York is very different than Long Island. So I think when people hear New York, they think New York City, oh, there's a ton to do there, but Western New York is very, very different. The weather is certainly nicer down here. We call this the tropics compared to living near Buffalo. But it's been really
Less snow.
great. There's a lot less snow this year. Um, there's just so much to love about Berks County. We live in Reading, in the Reading area. So, date night comes, we're on Penn Avenue, walking the avenue, just seeing where the wind takes us. And we just really enjoy that. My son goes to Berks Nature Camp. And when I rolled up there the first time, like, I was just so happy that he had the opportunity to experience, just going to nature camp all day, and how incredible the programs that they have developed there, and the different activities he gets to do. So there's no complaints about Berks County. I love it here, and I think it's a great place.
That's great. And your wife, is she still at Tower Health, or has she moved on?
She has moved on to Penn State St. Joe's now. So
Okay.
we are Penn State. So we're peddling that.
And what is your favorite restaurant in the area?
Oh my goodness. Well, I would say a favorite restaurant to go and like have a real sit down without my son would be Judy's on Cherry. Would be my favorite restaurant. But if son is in tow, we love heading up to Plum Creek Creamery and letting them play in the playground and go nuts. And you get dessert first there. So I mean, that's a plus.
You have to start with dessert at Plum Creek.
You really do.
Yeah. We like to go up there too. My kids are love the playground. Then you can't get them off of it. That's the only downside.
You get second ice cream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm really glad to have you on the show. Before we close, what is something that you think people should be aware of that they aren't typically aware of in your industry?
Yeah, sure. I think people should be aware of that mental health affects all of us. It's not just something for, other people, or get a checkup. Don't be scared. Therapists are really awesome people. We're just here to listen and help and guide, and, do what feels right for you. But, I wish more people knew that this is not a bad service to engage with, or something that makes you less than. It just makes you human.
In a lot of ways, I think it makes you more developed.
Yeah.
But if any of our listeners are looking to reach out to you or to your business, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best way is really to hop on our website at www.paragonbhs.com, and you can fill out a new appointment request right there on our website without having to call, because we know sometimes just making that first phone call, it's super hard. It's really anxiety provoking when maybe you're already going through something difficult and you might not want to talk to somebody. Shoot us and you get the ball rolling by filling out that request form, and, we can reach out to you through your preferred method of contact.
Well, great. Certainly, if any of our listeners are having mental health issues, I certainly would encourage them to reach out to you. And thank you again for being a guest here on Not Minding My Own Business. Again, this is Russell Farbiars signing off from another episode of Not Minding My Own Business.